You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and we've already gone through 2 weeks of college football. Can you believe that? 2 weeks of college football have come and gone. We've got week 3 coming up, but before we get to week 3, I want to recap a few of the games, the big games from week 2, and we'll start with the biggest upset of the season. We had Notre Dame versus Northern Illinois University. Over 77,000 fans were in Notre Dame Stadium yesterday to witness the upset of the season yesterday when the Northern Illinois Huskies came into South Bend, Indiana, and beat the number 5 Notre Dame Fighting Irish by a score of 16-14. There really wasn't a lot to enjoy if you were a Notre Dame fan. The offense couldn't get anything going against an NIU defense that came prepared. They came prepared, they came to play. Irish running back Jeremiah Love accounted for one of the Irish's 2 rushing touchdowns, but he was limited to under 100 yards on the day. Transfer quarterback Riley Leonard also got humbled pretty good against NIU stout MAC defense. The signal caller had some atrocious stats on Saturday. 20 for 32 passing for 163 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Stats like that won't get you far this season and definitely won't get you into the college football playoffs, which is where they had their sights set on this season. And after that Texas A&M victory, a lot of folks were really high on Notre Dame. They believed that Notre Dame had a path forward, a pretty good path on paper to get to the championship or the playoffs this season. NIU Huskies running back Antario Brown had a monster day yesterday. He rushed for 99 yards on 20 carries and also caught 2 passes for a total of 126 yards and 1 score. His longest reception of the day was a beautiful pass in which Brown ran past defenders for 83 yards en route to the touchdown. The Huskies pulled off the upset by doing everything right. They limited mistakes while also wreaking havoc on Notre Dame's offense. Some may say Notre Dame was coming off a pretty emotional high in week 1, outlasting Texas A&M, and perhaps they may have been overlooking NIU. I tend to believe that NIU outcoached Notre Dame. Head coach Thomas Hammock is in his 6th season at his alma mater at NIU, and he is responsible for pulling off the greatest upset victory in Northern Illinois' history. It was a win that he and his team very much needed to boost that program up. NIU is a good program if you're familiar with them in the MAC. They have done some really impressive things. They've had some good head coaches there. Joe Novak is, a Hall of Famer. If he's not a Hall of Famer in real life, he's a Hall of Famer in my book. You also had Dave Doran. He was a coach there. NIU has seen success. They've won MAC championships in the past. Thomas Hammock, I believe, has also won a MAC championship there. NIU it's a solid program in the MAC conference. But this is a win that catapults that program up to another level. And hats off to Thomas Hammock. He's a good guy. I've met him before in the past. After this game, Coach Hammock gave a very tearful interview to the NBC reporter, which captured the hearts of many. Hammock teared up. He's a humble guy. He's a good guy. I'm lucky to have met him back in the day when I was in high school. I was playing high school football. Graduated from Naperville Central High School, but back in 2004, I went on a recruiting visit to Wisconsin. Barry Alvarez was the head coach there, and I believe I've said this on this podcast before, but that was back in the days where your folks would video record your games on a camcorder, and then my mom dubbed them off on VHS tapes. And then we sent the tapes out to colleges and recruiters all across the country. And I got good response and good feedback from a lot of colleges such as Northwestern, Wisconsin, Missouri. There were teams. I've still got the shoebox full of the letters that basically my mom helped me put together my own recruiting tapes. Now, today, it's all, on digital, or it's all on your cell phone. You're able to upload to various recruiting applications, and that's really cool. Like Huddle is, I believe, an application that you can upload your own stuff. Like that's really cool. It gives you the power to promote yourself, basically. So my mom did that, and we ended up going on a junior day visit, my father and I, to Wisconsin, and Thomas Hammock came up to me. He was a running backs coach there, I believe, at Wisconsin, and he came up to me while my father and I were just sitting down at the table, believe we're eating lunch or whatever, and he gave me his business card, which I still have. It's probably in my shoebox full of my letters that I've saved over the years, but he reached out. He was a cool guy. I think he said he was from Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is just literally next door to Naperville. And we just kind of chopped it up for a little bit. He was very humble, very nice. You could tell that he was going places. He was a young coach at that time. He eventually went to the Baltimore Ravens as a running back coach, and then he came back to NIU to coach when that position became available. And he's done an outstanding job there. The record may not dictate that, his overall record, but they've done some great things in his tenure. And beating Notre Dame on the road has to surpass everything that he's done and anybody before him has done. And just really wanted to give him his props. I hope that he can have the year that he's looking for this season. Hopefully NIU can reach the heights that they're trying to set out for and hopefully win the MAC again. But, that's an amazing victory for that program. I know it meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to everyone around DeKalb, Illinois. I'm sure they were partying last night. I'm sure they had a great time. I mean, that's something you will never, ever forget. Beating a ranked Notre Dame team in their own home. Just beating Notre Dame, period, is huge for many people if you get that opportunity. But the fact that Notre Dame was in the top 5 and NIU came in there, did yeoman's work, and pulled off the upset, I mean, hats off to everyone involved with that program. It's the greatest upset victory in their history. Hammock, again, is a good guy, and I hope that team is on a path to success this season. He really prides himself on growing the talent organically, meaning he recruits. You see him on social media asking people to send him their huddles or their tape, their footage, so that his staff can review and see if they can make a good fit there at NIU, and they'll grow the talent. They've got plenty of 3-star recruits, but I saw him tweet out something yesterday. Notre Dame had like 54 4- and 5-star recruits. NIU had 0. But if you look at 3-star recruits, NIU's got a lot of 3-star recruits, which they build up and train and get them to where they need to be. I think there's something to be said about a team that can grow its own talent, develop them. They can play together as a team. They can win together as a team. They can lose together as a team. And they go through everything together as a team. Like, that's how football used to be. You would stay with the program for a few years. You would stay there 4 years. Maybe you transfer out once. But like with the NIL portal, players can leave and come and go as much as they want, after a season. So the fact that these players really bought into what Thomas Hammock is preaching, and they believe in themselves, and they played a relatively clean game yesterday, they deserve all the credit in the world. So I just wanted to shout NIU out. That was a fantastic victory and probably the biggest upset of the college football season. Then we had NC State versus Tennessee. NC State got embarrassed pretty good against Tennessee last night in Charlotte by a score of 51-10. The Volunteers posted 460 yards of total offense compared to 143 for the Wolfpack. As a team, the Volunteers rushed for 249 yards, which includes an impressive performance from Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson, who accounted for 132 of those yards on only 20 carries and 2 touchdowns. The rushing attack for NC State was virtually non-existent. The Volunteers' defense limited the Wolfpack to only 39 yards rushing and pressured quarterback Grayson McCall for most of the game, sacking the transfer quarterback 3 times. The Volunteers also accounted for 13 tackle for losses. The Wolfpack did not have an answer for Tennessee the entire game, and the Volunteers definitely looked like the better team. Quarterback Grayson McCall, who is a graduate transfer this season, looks like he is not the guy. And it pains me to say that it's only week 2, but this was very much a statement game that NC State needed to perform well in and win. The 41-point drubbing by Tennessee is a bad look and brings the Wolfpack faithful back down to reality for this season. We are not a team that will be able to compete on the national level this season despite how bad we want it. I'm disappointed that head coach Dave Doeren, former NIU coach, continues to miss on quarterbacks. The last several quarterbacks under his tenure, dating back to Devin Leary's last season at NC State, have been busts for the most part. I don't know if that's a result of relying too heavily on the portal or what, but I'm worried that McCall is not the guy. I wish Coach Doeren would develop quarterbacks. I wish he would develop players better, especially quarterbacks. It just does not feel like there's any development there. We rely too heavily on the transfer portal to fix something that needs more help. It's not an immediate fix, and I'm worried that McCall is not the guy. There were several throws that McCall made which make me feel as if he has no field awareness. NC State was driving in the red zone in the first half, and he threw the ball right to the defender, who turned it into a pick six. Even in the game last week, McCall made some critical errors that could have cost NC State the game. I think it will be a long season for the Wolfpack, unfortunately. I'm not convinced that NC State is a team that will push for an ACC title this season. And unfortunately, to quote Steve Smith Sr., we're just waiting for basketball season. Then we had Texas versus Michigan. The Longhorns came into the Big House yesterday and beat up on the Wolverines pretty good by a score of... Oh, bless you. I have a live audience here. My daughter's in the studio today, in the CPE studio. Zola, why don't you say hello?
Hello.
The Longhorns came into the Big House yesterday and beat up on the Wolverines pretty good by a score of 31-12. ESPN and Fox were on location from Ann Arbor yesterday for the game, which didn't make much sense to me because we all knew Michigan was going to lose big yesterday. To me, that didn't seem like the top game of the weekend. I honestly would have thought Game Day would broadcast from Charlotte for the Tennessee versus NC State game. Both of these teams were ranked. But in retrospect, I'm glad that they didn't. In this game, though, you got two national blue bloods. So I get the reasoning now that I'm saying that out loud. Texas was very impressive. Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers had a monster game, passing for 24 of 36 for 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. More impressive is the fact that the Longhorns defense kept Michigan out of the end zone for most of the game until the fourth quarter and recovered 3 turnovers. Michigan looked outmatched and overpowered quickly in this game, and really only confirmed my belief that the Wolverines are going to struggle mightily this season in the Big Ten. Now, they may win against teams that they should beat, such as Michigan State, Indiana, and Northwestern, but there are many other teams that they will lose to big time, including USC, Illinois, Oregon, and Ohio State. If you ask me, it's going to be a long season for Big Blue this year. Well, there we have it, my friends. Those were a few of the games in Week 2 that really had my interest. I'm going to take a short break. After the break, though, I'll give you my top 5 locks for Week 3 action. Don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back.
Are you a tackle football fan? Kick off your day with an episode of Colts Corner. A group of passionate Colts fans discuss the latest news around Indianapolis Colts football. You don't want to miss us. Follow us on Facebook, Colts Corner 1, and on Twitter at Colts_Corner 1, and all major podcast platforms.
That includes Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, Short Courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Now I want to give you my top 5 locks for Week 3 action. We'll start in the ACC. I'm taking Ole Miss over Wake Forest. I think Ole Miss wins big this weekend against a Wake Forest squad who is coming off a very disappointing 31-30 loss to UVA. Ole Miss has outscored its opponents 128-3 after its first 2 games of the season. Now, I know it's not top-tier talent, but the fact that that offense is putting up 128 points and limiting its opponents to only 3 points after 2 games is very impressive. I expect Rebels quarterback Jackson Dart to have a monster game against Wake Forest. Through 2 games, Dart has passed for nearly 800 yards with 6 touchdowns and no interceptions. So in the ACC, I'm taking Ole Miss over Wake Forest. In the Big 12, I'm taking West Virginia over Pitt. This is the 107th backyard brawl between West Virginia and Pittsburgh, where the home team has won the last 3 meetings. This year, Pittsburgh hosts, and while history would be on their side, I am actually going to take the Mountaineers for this year's matchup. This would be a great win for the Mountaineers early, especially considering their upcoming slate of games is going to be brutal. Their next 4 out of 5 games are against teams that were ranked through Week 2 action. Pittsburgh enters this matchup against the Mountaineers riding a 2-game win streak in an impressive come-from-behind 28-27 point victory against Cincinnati. In that game, Pitt quarterback Eli Holstein threw for 302 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. The Panthers' defense accounted for 3 sacks and 6 tackle for losses. This game this weekend will be close, but still I give the edge to West Virginia. Then in the Big Ten, I'm taking Bama over Wisconsin. This series between Bama and Wisconsin is tied at 1-1 all time. This is Alabama's first trip to Madison since 1928, when President Calvin Coolidge was in office. This is also Alabama's first road game against a Big Ten opponent since 2011. So this is a big-time matchup, and I actually wish I was in Camp Randall this upcoming weekend to be in town for this one. I mean, Wisconsin is a great atmosphere. It's a great backdrop. Madison is for college football, especially during the fall. It is beautiful. Wisconsin has a great football tradition, and it's a great place to watch a game, and I'm sure it will be a party in Camp Randall this weekend when the SEC rolls into town. I've got some concerns about Alabama long-term this season, but right now, through the first couple of weeks of the season, they have looked impressive. And again, albeit against inferior talent, but it will be tough soon here for Alabama. Wisconsin has the perfect opportunity to, air quote, upset number 4 Alabama this weekend. In the recent past, Camp Randall has been a tough place for opponents to win in. The Badgers are 51-14 at home in the last 10 seasons. And I'm taking Bama in this game this weekend, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wisconsin is able to keep it close. It would be an amazing victory for Wisconsin, as they have not beaten a team within the top 10 of the AP polls since 2021, when they upset number 9 Iowa at home by a score of 27-7. So in the Big Ten, I'm taking Bama over Wisconsin. In the Pac-12, I'm taking Washington State over Washington. This Apple Cup comes early this season, with Washington and Washington State meeting up this year in 2 separate conferences for the first time. RIP to the Pac-12. Now, while Washington holds a 76-33 advantage all time in the Apple Cup series, I'm actually taking the Washington State Cougars in this matchup. Washington State is coming off the very impressive 37-16 victory over Texas Tech, and a win against Washington would be salt in the wounds for the Huskies, who departed the Pac-12 for greener pastures in the Big Ten. The Huskies are currently riding a 2-game win streak against Washington State in this series, but still, I'm going to go with Washington State in the upset win over Washington this upcoming weekend for the Apple Cup. Then in the SEC, I'm taking Missouri over Boston College. I think Missouri versus BC will be a fun watch. Missouri has basically picked up where they left off last season en route to a 2-0 record. But more impressive is how Boston College has looked during the first 2 weeks of the season, especially after upsetting Florida State earlier this season. Now, I know FSU isn't the team that we were led to believe they are, but it's still impressive to see Boston College clicking offensively. Eagles quarterback Thomas Castellanos plays bigger than his 5'9" frame. Through 2 games this season, the junior signal caller has been masterful, throwing for 340 yards, 6 touchdowns to no interceptions. I think he's going to have a perfect game on Saturday in order to beat Missouri, but I think they fall short of the victory. I'm taking Missouri in a game that will be a fun watch. So there we have it, my friends. Those are my top 5 locks for Week 3 action. These are my straight-up predictions, so I'll run it back for you one more time. In the ACC, I'm taking Ole Miss over Wake Forest. In the Big 12, I'm taking West Virginia over Pitt. In the Big 10, I'm taking Bama over Wisconsin. In the Pac-12, I'm taking Washington State over Washington in the Apple Cup. And in the SEC, I'm taking Missouri over Boston College. Well, thank you, my friends, for listening to another Cherry Pickin' podcast. This was my Week 2 recap, Week 3 preview. I hope you learned something, and I hope it got you excited and ready for college football this weekend. Week 3 action is coming straight at you in a matter of a few days. I hope you have a great week. I hope you guys power through the work week. Hope you are able to do something fun, and I hope you are able to enjoy college football this weekend. Thank you for listening to this podcast to get you ready. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Hope you guys have a good one. Take care, everybody. Peace. The Longhorns came into the big house yesterday and beat up on the Wolverines pretty good by a score of... Oh, bless you. I have a live audience here. My daughter's in the studio today, in the CPE studio. Zola, why don't you say hello? Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.